Maria Santos pushed her cart down the sterile hallway of Blackwater Defense Technologies, the wheels squeaking in a rhythm that had become as familiar as her own heartbeat. 3 years of mopping these floors, emptying these trash cans, and being invisible to the people who walked past her like she was part of the furniture. 3 years of playing the role perfectly. "Hey, cleaning lady." Derek Morrison's voice echoed off the marble walls. The VP of Operations strutted toward her, his Italian leather shoes clicking against the polished floor. "You missed a spot yesterday in conference room B again." Maria stopped pushing her cart and looked up at him with the practiced expression of mild confusion she'd perfected. "I'm sorry, Mr. Morrison. I clean that room every day." Maybe nothing." He stepped closer, invading her personal space with the confidence of a man who'd never faced real consequences. "You've been screwing up left and right." The trash bins in the executive wing were overflowing Tuesday. The bathroom on the 3rd floor ran out of paper towels. "And don't get me started on the coffee stains you left on the break room counter." She nodded slowly, keeping her eyes downcast. "I understand your frustration. I try my best. Your best isn't good enough." Morrison's voice carried down the hallway, drawing attention from passing employees. "I've been talking to the board, and we've decided your services are no longer needed." Maria felt the familiar calm settle over her, the same stillness that had kept her alive through countless missions in places most people couldn't pronounce. She'd been expecting this. In fact, she'd been counting on it. "I see," she said quietly. "When would you like me to finish?" "Today, right now." Morrison pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket and thrust it at her. "Here's your final paycheck. Security will escort you out." As if summoned by his words, 2 security guards appeared at the end of the hallway. Maria recognized them both. Jenkins, who always nodded politely when she cleaned the security desk, and Rodriguez, who sometimes shared stories about his kids during her late-night shifts. "Is this really necessary?" she asked, still maintaining her meek demeanor, even as she calculated 17 different ways to disable both guards without breaking stride. "Company policy," Morrison said with obvious satisfaction. "Can't have disgruntled employees wandering around sensitive areas." Sensitive areas. If only he knew just how many of those sensitive areas she'd already accessed during her 3 years here. The irony almost made her smile. Maria began gathering her cleaning supplies, moving with the slow, methodical pace of someone who had nowhere else to go. She made sure to fumble with the spray bottles, dropping one with a clatter that made Morrison roll his eyes. "Christ, even packing up you can't do right," he muttered. "I'm sorry," Maria said, bending to retrieve the bottle. As she straightened, her eyes swept the hallway, automatically cataloging exits, sight lines, and potential cover. Old habits died hard. This job meant a lot to me." "Yeah, well, maybe next time you'll take some pride in your work." Morrison was already turning away, his attention shifting to his phone. "Rodriguez, make sure she doesn't take anything that doesn't belong to her." The security guard approached with apologetic eyes. "I'm sorry about this, Maria. You always seemed like a good person." "Thank you, Carlos," she said softly. "Could you tell your wife I said goodbye? She was always so kind when she visited." Rodriguez's expression grew even more uncomfortable. "I will. Listen, if you need a reference or anything ... That's enough," Morrison snapped from down the hall. "Get her out of here. I have a meeting in 10 minutes, and I don't want to see her face when I come back." Maria finished packing her supplies into a small cardboard box. 3 years of carefully maintained cover, and all she had to show for it were some worn cleaning rags and a bottle of industrial-strength floor cleaner. The perfect end to a perfect performance. As they walked toward the exit, she caught sight of Dr. Elizabeth Chen through the glass wall of the research lab. The scientist was hunched over her computer, completely absorbed in her work. Maria had spent countless hours cleaning around that lab, always careful to appear focused on her own tasks while memorizing every detail of Chen's research schedule, her security protocols, her patterns of behavior. It was almost time. The lobby of Blackwater Defense Technologies was all gleaming glass and polished chrome, designed to intimidate visitors and impress potential clients. Maria had walked through it hundreds of times, pushing her cart, carrying her mop bucket, invisible to the important people in their expensive suits. Today, for the first time in 3 years, people were looking at her. Jenkins opened the main door, and Maria stepped outside into the humid Washington, D.C. afternoon. The security guard handed her the box of cleaning supplies. "Good luck, Maria," he said quietly. "Thank you." She adjusted her grip on the box and looked back at the imposing building that had been her workplace and her hunting ground. "I have a feeling everything's going to work out just fine." As she walked away, her cell phone buzzed in her pocket. She didn't need to check it to know what the message said. After 3 years of careful observation, meticulous planning, and flawless execution of her cover identity, Phase 1 was complete. Phase 2 would begin tonight. Maria Santos, if that was even her real name, disappeared into the crowd of D.C. commuters, looking like just another casualty of corporate downsizing. But the slight smile that played at the corners of her mouth suggested she knew something the rest of the world didn't, something that Derek Morrison in Blackwater Defense Technologies would discover very soon. The building behind her hummed with activity, its employees going about their daily routines, completely unaware that they had just made the biggest mistake of their lives. 6 hours after being escorted from Blackwater Defense Technologies, Maria sat in a nondescript sedan parked 3 blocks away, watching the building through high-powered binoculars. Her janitor's uniform had been replaced by dark tactical clothing, and the meek expression she'd worn for 3 years was gone, replaced by the focused intensity of a predator studying its prey. Her earpiece crackled to life. "Reaper, this is Control. Status report." Maria pressed the transmit button on her collar. "Reaper here. Cover blown as expected. Target facility maintains normal operations. No indication they suspect anything beyond standard employee termination." "Copy that. Are you ready to proceed to Phase 2? Maria lowered the binoculars and checked her watch. 8:47 p.m. The building would be mostly empty except for essential security and the night shift researchers. Perfect. Affirmative, Control. Beginning infiltration in 60 seconds. Roger. Remember, Reaper, this is a recovery mission only. Dr. Chen's research must be secured, but we need her alive and cooperative. The leak in her department has compromised national security, but she's not the traitor." "Understood." Maria's voice was calm, professional. The transformation from bumbling janitor to military operative was complete. "I've been watching her patterns for 3 years. She's clean, but someone in her inner circle isn't. Do you have suspects?" Maria smiled grimly as she retrieved a small bag from the back seat. Inside were tools that had never been part of her janitor's arsenal: lockpicks, electronic surveillance, devices and equipment that could crack any security system Blackwater used. "I have a theory," she said. "Give me 30 minutes, and I'll have proof. 30 minutes, Reaper. Then we extract, with or without confirmation." Maria stepped out of the sedan and melted into the shadows between 2 parked cars. 3 years of mapping every entrance, every camera, every blind spot in Blackwater security was about to pay off. She approached the building from the east side, where a service entrance was hidden behind carefully maintained landscaping. The door was supposed to be monitored by a security camera, but Maria had noticed months ago that the camera had a dead zone, a blind spot caused by an overgrown tree branch that maintenance had never trimmed. She'd never reported it. After all, she was just the janitor. The lock on the service door was electronic, but Maria had obtained the override codes months ago during one of her late-night cleaning sessions. Amazing what people left lying around when they thought the Cleaning lady couldn't read. The door opened silently, and Maria slipped inside. The building after hours was a different creature than during the day. Emergency lighting cast strange shadows, and the constant hum of computers and climate control systems created an almost living atmosphere. Maria moved through the corridors like a ghost, avoiding the security cameras with practiced ease. She reached the elevator bank and paused. The elevators required keycard access after hours, and using her old janitor's card would immediately alert security that she was in the building. But Maria had other options. She pulled a small device from her pocket, a card reader duplicator she'd built from components borrowed during her time as an employee. 3 years of collecting, learning, preparing. Tonight, all that patience would be vindicated. The device activated Dr. Chen's keycard permissions, and the elevator doors opened silently. Research Level 7, where Dr. Elizabeth Chen worked late into the night, completely unaware that her life was about to change forever. As the elevator rose, Maria's mind went over everything she'd learned during her time at Blackwater. Dr. Chen's research into quantum encryption wasn't just academically interesting. It was the key to unbreakable military communications. In the wrong hands, it could compromise every classified operation the U.S. military conducted. Someone had been stealing that research, piece by piece, selling it to foreign governments. The leak had been identified 6 months ago, but pinpointing the source required someone on the inside. Someone invisible. Someone like a janitor. The elevator doors opened on the 7th floor, and Maria immediately heard voices coming from the research lab. Dr. Chen was there, as expected, but she wasn't alone. Maria pressed herself against the wall and activated a small listening device, aiming it at the lab's glass wall. "Told you, I don't have the final algorithms yet." Dr. Chen's voice was tense, frightened. "The encryption matrix isn't complete." "That's unfortunate, Elizabeth." The second voice was male, familiar. Maria's eyes narrowed as recognition dawned. "My buyers are getting impatient. They've paid a considerable sum for your research." Derek Morrison, the VP who had fired her just hours earlier. "I won't give you anything else," Dr. Chen said firmly. "I know what you're doing with my work, and I won't be responsible for compromising national security." "You don't have a choice." Morrison's voice turned cold. "You're in too deep to back out now. Besides, who's going to believe you? I'm a respected executive." "You're just a researcher with gambling debts." Maria smiled grimly. Morrison had made a crucial error. He'd assumed his position in the company made him untouchable. He had no idea that his conversation was being recorded by someone who had spent 3 years learning his patterns, his weaknesses, his contacts. Someone who had just been given the perfect opportunity to bring him down. "Dr. Chen," Maria said, stepping into the open doorway of the lab, "I think you should step away from Mr. Morrison." Both figures spun toward her, their faces showing identical expressions of shock. "What the hell?" Morrison sputtered. "Maria, how did you get in here?" "Security." "Security won't be coming," Maria said calmly, continuing to advance into the room. "I disabled the alarms on this floor before I came up, an old habit from my cleaning days." Dr. Chen stared at her in confusion. "Maria, what are you doing here? How did you?" "The question isn't how I got here, Dr. Chen. The question is whether Mr. Morrison is planning to let you leave this building alive." Morrison's hand moved toward his jacket pocket, but Maria was already moving. 3 years of pretending to be slow and clumsy had hidden reflexes honed by military training. She crossed the room in 2 swift strides, her hand clamping down on Morrison's wrist before he could draw whatever weapon he'd been reaching for. "I wouldn't," she said quietly. "You're already in enough trouble." Morrison tried to pull away, but Maria's grip was like a steel trap. "You're just the cleaning lady. Let go of me." "Actually," Maria said, applying pressure to a nerve cluster. That made Morrison gasp in pain. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Maria Santos, United States Army Special Operations. And you, Mr. Morrison, are under arrest for espionage, treason, and conspiracy to sell classified military research to foreign agents." The color drained from Morrison's face. "That's impossible. You're just ... The janitor?" Maria smiled. "The invisible woman who cleaned your office every day for 3 years? Who listened to your phone calls, photographed your documents, and recorded your meetings? Yes, Derek, I'm just the janitor." Dr. Chen sank into her chair, staring at Maria with a mixture of awe and disbelief. "You're military? But you were always so ... convincing?" Maria released Morrison and stepped back, keeping herself between him and the exit. 3 years of deep cover investigation. "We knew someone in this department was selling your research, but we needed evidence. Real evidence that would hold up in court." Her earpiece crackled. "Reaper control. We have movement on the ground floor. Security teams converging on your location." Maria pressed her transmit button. "Copy. Control, mission accomplished. I have the target and the asset, ready for extraction." "What are you talking about?" Dr. Chen stood up shakily. "What extraction?" "Dr. Chen, your research has been compromised and your life is in danger. There are other people involved in this. Conspiracy people who won't hesitate to eliminate you to protect themselves. We need to get you somewhere safe." Morrison laughed bitterly. "You think this is over? You think I'm the only one? This goes deeper than you know, you stupid woman. Taking me down won't stop anything." "Maybe not," Maria agreed, "but it's a start." The sound of footsteps echoed from the hallway, multiple people moving fast. Maria's expression remained calm, but her body language shifted into combat readiness. "Dr. Chen, I need you to stay behind me and do exactly what I say. Can you do that?" The scientist nodded, her face pale but determined. "Good. Mr. Morrison, you're going to walk out of here quietly, or I'm going to demonstrate some of the skills they don't teach in janitorial training. What do you think will happen next? Share your predictions in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more thrilling stories." The footsteps in the hallway grew louder, but Maria's enhanced. Hearing picked up something the others missed. The coordination was too perfect, the spacing too tactical. This wasn't building security responding to an alarm. "Dr. Chen," Maria said quietly, never taking her eyes off Morrison, "when I say run, I need you to go to the emergency stairwell at the end of the hall. Don't use the elevator. But trust me." Morrison's expression had shifted from fear to smug satisfaction. "Too late, Colonel. You should have minded your own business." The lab door exploded inward as 4 armed figures in tactical gear burst through. But instead of the building's security uniforms, these men wore black combat gear with no identifying marks. Professional mercenaries. Maria was already moving before the door hit the wall. She grabbed Dr. Chen and pulled her behind the labs. Heavy equipment as automatic weapons fire shattered the glass walls and computer monitors. Federal agents. Maria shouted, hoping to buy time. "Stand down," one of the mercenaries laughed. "Nice try, lady. We know exactly who you are, Lieutenant. Colonel Santos. 3 years is a long time to maintain cover." "Impressive, really." Maria's blood ran cold. Her identity had been compromised, which meant someone with high-level clearance had betrayed her mission. The leak in Blackwater wasn't just about Dr. Chen's research, it went much deeper. "How did you know about you?" Morrison stepped out. From behind the mercenaries, a pistol now in his hand. "You really think we didn't notice the woman who had access to every office, every computer terminal, every classified conversation in this building? The only question was whether you were working for us or against us." Dr. Chen huddled behind the lab equipment, her face white with terror. "Maria, what's happening? Who are these people?" "Corporate espionage gone military," Maria said grimly. "Assessing their tactical situation. 4 armed hostiles, superior firepower, limited cover, and 1 civilian to protect. The odds were challenging, but not impossible. Her earpiece crackled with static. They were jamming communications. "Here's what's going to happen," Morrison continued. "Dr. Chen is going to give us the complete encryption algorithms, and you're going to disappear permanently. And if she refuses?" Morrison smiled coldly. "Then we'll make her watch while we kill you slowly. And then we'll get the information anyway. Dr. Chen has a family, Colonel. A sister in Seattle, parents in California. The research is worth billions on the international market." Maria felt the familiar calm descend over her, the battle clarity that had kept her alive through deployments in Afghanistan, Syria, and places that didn't officially exist on any map. 3 years of playing weak and helpless had almost made her forget who she really was. Almost. "Dr. Chen," she said quietly, "do you have your phone?" "Yes, but when I give the signal, I need you to call 911 and tell them there's a terrorist attack at Blackwater Defense Technologies. Can you do that?" The scientist nodded, though her hands were shaking. Maria smiled, and for the first time in 3 years, it was the smile of a predator rather than prey. "Gentlemen, I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding." "What misunderstanding?" Morrison demanded. "You seem to think I'm trapped in here with you." Maria's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried more menace than a shout. "But actually, you're trapped in here with me." She moved. 3 years of forced inactivity hadn't dulled her reflexes, if anything. The enforced stillness had been like compressing a spring. Maria exploded from behind cover, using the lab equipment to shield her approach. The mercenaries had expected a panicked civilian, not a highly trained special operations soldier. The first mercenary went down before he could react, Maria's strike crushing his windpipe. She rolled behind a workstation as bullets shattered the equipment where she'd been standing. "Call now," she shouted to Dr. Chen. The second mercenary tried to flank her position, but Maria had spent 3 years memorizing every inch of this laboratory. She knew exactly where he would move, and she was waiting. A stolen lab stool became a projectile that caught him in the face, sending him stumbling backward into his partner's line of fire. In the confusion, Maria closed the distance. Years of hand-to-hand combat training, enhanced by 3 years of suppressed rage at being underestimated and dismissed, made her a force of nature. The second mercenary's weapon went flying, and he followed it to the floor with several broken ribs. Morrison was screaming orders, but his remaining men were professionals. They adapted quickly, using overlapping fields of fire to pin Maria behind cover, while one of them moved to secure Dr. Chen. That was their mistake. Maria had spent 3 years being invisible, ignored, treated like furniture. But she'd also spent 3 years learning that protecting people, really protecting them, required more than just following orders. It required being willing to sacrifice everything. She stepped out of cover, directly into the mercenary's line of fire. The bullets that should have killed her instead struck the Kevlar vest she'd put on under her tactical clothing. The impact drove her to her knees, but she kept moving, using the mercenaries, surprised to close the final distance. What happened next was a blur of motion that would have impressed her old instructors at Fort Bragg. Maria Santos, the invisible janitor, had disappeared completely. In her place was Lieutenant Colonel Santos, one of the most decorated special operations soldiers in the U.S. Army. When the violence ended, 3 mercenaries were unconscious or incapacitated, and Derek Morrison was on his knees with his hands zip-tied behind his back, staring at Maria like he'd seen a ghost. "Impossible," he whispered. "You're just a janitor." Maria knelt down until she was at eye level with him. "I was never just anything, Derek. That was your first mistake." Dr. Chen emerged from behind the equipment, phone pressed to her ear. "The police are on their way." "FBI too. I told them we had a national security situation." "Good." Maria stood up and surveyed the destruction of the laboratory. Dr. Chen, I need you to gather any research materials that weren't destroyed, especially anything related to the quantum encryption project. Most of it's on the secure servers, but I have backup. Drives, get them. We're leaving. Morrison laughed bitterly. You think this is over? I told you, this goes deeper than you know. Taking me down just makes you a target. They'll never stop hunting you. Maria's earpiece suddenly crackled back to life. Reaper, control. Do you copy? She pressed the transmit button. Control, this is Reaper. I copy. Mission status has changed. We have multiple hostiles down, but the conspiracy is larger than anticipated. Copy that. The extraction team is en route. ETA is 5 minutes. Roger. Maria looked at Morrison with contempt. You're right about one thing, Derek. This is bigger than just you. But you made one critical error in your assessment. What's that? Maria smiled, and this time it was the expression of someone who had spent 3 years being underestimated and had finally been given the chance to show what she was really capable of. You assumed I was working alone. The sound of helicopters filled the air outside, and the building's lights flickered as electromagnetic pulse devices disabled the remaining security systems. Through the shattered windows, Morrison could see repelling figures descending from aircraft that didn't appear on any civilian registry. Ladies and gentlemen, Maria said into her transmitter, this is Lieutenant Colonel Maria Santos' call. Sign Reaper. The package is secure, the target is in custody, and I'm ready to come home. Dr. Chen stared at her with a mixture of awe and confusion. Reaper? That's your call sign? Maria nodded. I earned it in Afghanistan. 3 years ago, when they gave me this assignment, I thought it would be the most boring mission of my career. Turns out, I was wrong. What happens now? Before Maria could answer, the laboratory filled with the sound of combat boots as her extraction team poured through the entrances. These weren't mercenaries or corporate security, these were her people. Soldiers she'd served with, fought beside, trusted with her life. The team leader, a grizzled sergeant with scars that told stories of a dozen conflicts, approached with a huge grin. Well. If it isn't the infamous Reaper. How was your vacation, Colonel? Maria laughed the first genuine laugh she'd had in 3 years. Boring, Sergeant Martinez. Really boring. Good thing it's over then. We've got a lot of catching up to do. As her team secured the scene and prepared Morrison for transport, Maria looked around the destroyed laboratory. 3 years of her life. 3 years of being invisible, ignored, dismissed as just the janitor. But those 3 years were worth it. Not just for the mission, not just for national security, but for the moment when Derek Morrison and everyone like him learned that they had made the biggest mistake of their lives. They had underestimated Maria Santos. And that mistake was going to cost them everything. The FBI debriefing room was sterile and windowless, designed to make subjects feel isolated and vulnerable. Maria sat at the metal table, still wearing her tactical gear, completely relaxed despite being questioned for the past 4 hours. Across from her, Agent Sarah Mitchell shuffled through a thick file folder with obvious frustration. Let me get this straight, Agent Mitchell said for the 3rd time. You spent 3 years working as a janitor, sanitation engineer, Maria corrected with a straight face. As a janitor at a private defense contractor, and during that time you identified a corporate espionage ring, documented their activities, and gathered enough evidence to prosecute multiple felony cases? That's correct. All while pretending to be a barely literate immigrant who could hardly speak English, Maria shrugged. The best cover stories are based on people's preconceptions. Americans tend to assume that people who clean buildings are invisible and ignorant. It's a useful bias to exploit. Agent Mitchell leaned back in her chair. Your commanding officer says you volunteered for this assignment. Why? The question hung in the air for a moment. Maria considered how much truth to reveal, how much of her real motivation to expose? The official answer was simple duty, service, following orders. The real answer was more complicated. Agent Mitchell, how long have you been with the FBI? 12 years. Why? In those 12 years, how many times have you walked into a room and had people assume you were someone's secretary or assistant? The agent's expression shifted slightly. That's not relevant to. It's completely relevant. Maria leaned forward. You know what it's like to be underestimated because of your gender. Now imagine being underestimated because of your job. Your accent, your uniform, your entire perceived social status. For 3 years, I was invisible to some of the most arrogant, entitled people in Washington, D.C. Do you know what that taught me? What? That invisible people see everything, Agent. Mitchell made a note in her file. The mercenaries who attacked you and Dr. Chen. We've identified them as former military contractors with ties to at least 3 different foreign intelligence services. Morrison's phone records show contacts with known arms dealers, corporate, espionage specialists, and several individuals on the FBI's watch list. What about Morrison himself? He's talking. Apparently, the prospect of treason charges carries more weight than whatever his foreign contacts were paying him. Mitchell flipped through several pages. According to his statement, the conspiracy reaches into at least 6 major defense contractors. And possibly several government agencies. Maria nodded. She'd suspected as much. Someone with high-level clearance knew about my mission. The mercenaries called me by name and rank. We're investigating that. In the meantime, Colonel Santos, I have to ask, do you intend to return to active duty? The question caught Maria off guard. For 3 years, she'd dreamed of reclaiming her real identity, of being a soldier again instead of playing at being invisible. But now, sitting in the sterile room, she realized something had changed. I'm not sure, she said honestly. The Army wants you back. Your commanding officer says you're being considered for promotion to full colonel. After this mission, you could write your own ticket. Maria thought about Dr. Elizabeth Chen, currently under protective custody while the FBI unraveled the full extent of the conspiracy. The scientist had asked her a question during the helicopter evacuation that had stuck with her. What will you do now that everyone knows who you really are? Good question. A knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. Agent Mitchell looked up as a young FBI agent entered and whispered something in her ear. The agent's expression grew serious. Colonel Santos, we have a problem. What kind of problem? Derek Morrison was found dead in his cell 20 minutes ago. Apparent suicide. But ... Mitchell hesitated. But the surveillance footage shows some irregularities. Maria felt ice form in her stomach. He was murdered. We're investigating, but yes, that's our working theory. Which means whoever was backing Morrison is now cleaning the house. And Dr. Chen? Still in protective custody, but we're moving her to a more secure location immediately. Colonel, I have to ask, are you willing to continue providing protection for Dr. Chen? Officially, this would be a joint FBI military operation. Maria stood up. For 3 years she'd been Maria the janitor, invisible and ignored. For a few hours tonight, she'd been Lieutenant Colonel Santos, Special Operations Soldier. Now she was being asked to be something else entirely. Agent Mitchell, I need to make a phone call. 20 minutes later, Maria was connected to a secure line that routed through 3 different military installations before reaching her commanding officer. Colonel Santos. General Morrison's voice was crisp, professional. Hell of a job, soldier. Hell of a job. Thank you, sir. In general, I need to know how deep this goes. Someone with access to classified military personnel files knew about my assignment. The leak isn't just at Blackwater. We're aware. That's why I'm glad you called. Maria, I'm going to be direct with you. This conspiracy reaches into places we can't investigate through normal channels. We need someone who can go places we can't go, see things we can't see. Sir, I'm offering you a new assignment. Officially, you'll be transferred to a joint FBI task force investigating corporate espionage. Unofficially, you'll be hunting the people who tried to kill you tonight. Maria looked through the one-way mirror of the debriefing room. In the hallway beyond, FBI agents moved with purpose, investigating a conspiracy that threatened national security. 3 years ago, she would have accepted the assignment without hesitation, but 3 years of being underestimated had taught her something important about choosing her battles. Generally, I accept the assignment, but I have conditions. Name them. First, Dr. Chen stays under my personal protection until this is resolved. She's not just a witness, she's the key to understanding what they were really after. Agreed. Second, I choose my own team. People I trust completely. Within reason. Agreed. Third, I want full operational autonomy. No oversight, no second-guessing. No interference from bureaucrats who think they know better. There was a pause. Maria, you're asking for unprecedented authority. General, for 3 years I pretended to be stupid so that stupid people would underestimate me. It worked perfectly. Now I'm asking you to trust that I know how to use that experience. Another pause. You have your conditions, Colonel. Don't make me regret this decision. Sir, I won't let you down. I know you won't. Maria? Yes, sir? Welcome back to the world, soldier. Maria hung up the phone and returned to the debriefing room. Agent Mitchell looked up expectantly. Agent Mitchell, I'm accepting the joint assignment. But first, I need to see Dr. Chen. She's being moved to a safe house in Virginia. You can see her there. Good, because I have a feeling she knows more about this conspiracy than she's told us. What makes you say that? Maria smiled, and for the first time since her cover had been blown, it was the smile of someone who knew exactly what she was doing. Agent Mitchell, I spent 3 years cleaning Dr. Chen's laboratory. I know her habits, her patterns, her security protocols. More importantly, I know what she keeps hidden. Hidden where? In places where people like Derek Morrison would never think to look. Places where only the janitor would have access. As they left the FBI building, Maria felt the weight of her real identity settling back onto her shoulders. Lieutenant Colonel Maria Santos, call sign Reaper, was officially back in action. But she was also still the woman who had spent 3 years being invisible, learning that the most dangerous enemies were the ones who never saw you coming. And this conspiracy was about to learn just how dangerous an invisible woman could be. The safe house was a nondescript colonial in suburban Virginia, the kind of place where neighbors minded their own business and asked few questions. Maria arrived just after midnight, driving a rented sedan that had been swept for tracking devices 3 times by FBI technical specialists. Dr. Elizabeth Chen met her at the door, looking exhausted but determined. The scientist had changed from her lab clothes into jeans and a sweater, but her eyes still held the shell-shocked expression of someone whose world had been turned upside down in a matter of hours. Maria, she said, stepping aside to let her enter. I still can't believe any of this is real. I know it's a lot to process. Maria scanned the interior of the house, automatically sight lines, exits, defensive positions, old habits. How are you holding up? Honestly, I feel like an idiot. Dr. Chen led her into the living room, where FBI agent Davis sat monitoring security feeds on a laptop. 3 years, you cleaned my lab every day, and I never suspected you were anything other than ... Other than what? Dr. Chen looked embarrassed. Other than exactly what you appeared to be. A hard-working woman just trying to make a living. I feel terrible about that now. Maria sat down on the couch across from her. Elizabeth, can I call you Elizabeth? You have nothing to feel terrible about. You treated me with respect and kindness. That's more than most people in that building ever did. But I never really saw you. That was the point. The best cover identities work because they make people comfortable with their own assumptions. Maria leaned forward. But right now I need you to see me. Really see me. Because there are things about your research, about what's been happening at Blackwater, that you need to understand. Dr. Chen nodded. Agent Mitchell said you thought I was hiding something. Not hiding, protecting. Maria pulled out a small digital recorder. Elizabeth, during my time cleaning your lab, I observed your work patterns. You're methodical, careful, and you keep multiple backups of everything. But there were times when you would work on something, then immediately lock it away. Something you never left on your computer or in your files. The scientist's face grew pale. How could you possibly know that? Because I was there, Elizabeth. Every night for 3 years, I watched you work. And I noticed that whenever you made a breakthrough on the quantum encryption algorithms, you would immediately transfer the data to an external drive, then delete it from your computer system. Dr. Chen was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. The drives are hidden in my apartment. Agent Davis looked up from his laptop. Dr. Chen, we need to recover those drives immediately. If Morrison's people know about them. They don't, Maria interrupted. Elizabeth, where did you hide them? In a place where no one would ever think to look. Dr. Chen managed a weak smile. I hid them inside the cleaning supply cabinet in my kitchen. I figured if someone broke into my apartment looking for research data, they'd never search there. Maria laughed despite the seriousness of the situation. You hid classified research data in cleaning supplies? I got the idea from watching you, actually. You were always so thorough, so methodical with your cleaning routines. It occurred to me that hiding something among cleaning supplies would make it invisible to anyone looking for high-tech espionage equipment. Elizabeth, you may have just saved national security with a bottle of floor cleaner. Agent Davis was already on his phone, arranging for a recovery team to secure Dr. Chen's apartment. While he coordinated with FBI headquarters, Maria turned her attention back to the scientist. Elizabeth, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Of course. During your time at Blackwater, did anyone else ever show unusual interest in your work? Anyone besides Morrison? Dr. Chen considered the question carefully. There was someone, Dr. Marcus Webb, the head of our department. He'd been asking a lot of questions about my progress, pushing me to work faster. At the time, I thought he was just under pressure from management. Maria felt pieces of the puzzle beginning to click into place. Dr. Webb has access to personnel, files, security protocols, research schedules. Yes, he would have access to everything. Dr. Chen's eyes widened as the implications hit her. You think he's involved? I think Dr. Webb is the reason those mercenaries knew my real identity. Elizabeth, I need you to think carefully. Did Dr. Webb ever ask you about the cleaning staff? About security procedures? Who had access to your lab after hours? Actually, yes. About 6 months ago, he started asking about after-hour security. He said he was concerned about industrial espionage and wanted to make sure our research was protected. Dr. Chen shook her head. I told him that the cleaning staff was thoroughly vetted, that the night janitor you had been there for years, and was completely trustworthy. What did he say to that? He asked for your personnel file. Said he wanted to review the background checks on everyone with access to sensitive areas. Maria's jaw tightened. Dr. Webb had been fishing for information about her cover identity, probably looking for inconsistencies or gaps that would reveal her true nature. The fact that he'd found them meant he had resources beyond what a simple department head should possess. Agent Davis finished his phone call and returned to the living room. The recovery team is en route to Dr. Chen's apartment. ETA 20 minutes. He looked at Maria. Colonel, I just got word from headquarters. Dr. Marcus Webb was found dead in his office 2 hours ago. Apparent heart attack. Like hell, Maria said grimly. How many people connected to this case have to die of natural causes before someone admits we're dealing with professional assassins? The autopsy will determine. The autopsy will show exactly what the killers wanted to show. Agent Davis. We're dealing with people who have resources, training, and connections at the highest levels. They're not going to leave evidence. Dr. Chen looked between them with growing fear. Are you saying they're going to try to kill me too? Maria turned to her with an expression of absolute determination. Elizabeth, I want you to listen to me very carefully. For 3 years, I was invisible to the people who are hunting you now. They dismissed me, ignored me, treated me like I didn't exist. That was their mistake then, and it's their mistake now. What do you mean? I mean that they're about to learn what happens when you underestimate someone who spent 3 years learning all your secrets. Maria stood up and walked to the window, scanning the quiet suburban street. Everything looked normal, peaceful, but her instincts were screaming that danger was approaching. Agent Davis, I need you to contact my team. Tell them we're moving. To Code Black protocols. What's Code Black? Maria smiled, and it was the expression of a predator that had just caught the scent of prey. Code Black means the hunter becomes the hunted. For 3 years, I've been reactive, defensive, playing by their rules. Time to change the game. She turned back to Dr. Chen. Elizabeth, you asked me what I was going to do now that everyone knows. Who I really am. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. What? I'm going to remind everyone why they gave me the call sign Reaper. The tension is building. If you're enjoying this story, hit that like button and let me know in the comments which character you're rooting for. Your support helps me create more incredible stories like this one. At 3:47 a.m., Maria's instincts proved correct. The motion sensors around the safe house began triggering in sequence, a coordinated approach by multiple hostiles moving with military precision. Maria was already awake. Had been for the past hour, sitting in the darkness of the living room with night vision goggles and a tactical rifle she'd requisitioned from the FBI armory. Agent Davis was at his monitoring station, and Dr. Chen was supposedly asleep in the upstairs bedroom. Movement on all perimeters, Davis whispered into his radio. At least 6 hostiles, possibly more. Maria's earpiece crackled with a familiar voice. Reaper, this is Falcon. We have eyes on your location. Hostiles are professional grade. Full tactical gear. Sergeant Martinez and her old team had arrived 4 hours earlier, positioning themselves in overwatch positions around the neighborhood. For 3 years, Maria had worked alone. Tonight, she had backup. Roger, Falcon. Rules of engagement. These people killed Morrison and Webb to cover their tracks. They're not here to take prisoners. Maria moved to the staircase. Elizabeth, she called softly. Time to go. Dr. Chen appeared at the top of the stairs, dressed in dark clothing and carrying a small backpack as Maria had instructed. The scientist looked terrified but determined. The back exit? She whispered. No, they'll expect that. Maria handed her a bulletproof vest. We're going out the front door, straight to the car. My team will provide cover. Agent Davis looked at her like she was insane. That's suicide. They have us surrounded. Agent Davis, for 3 years I let people think I was helpless. Tonight, I'm going to show them what helplessness really looks like. Maria activated her throat mic. All units, this is Reaper. Execute. Thunderbolt in 60 seconds. Roger, Reaper. Thunderbolt in 60. Maria checked her weapon one final time, then looked at Dr. Chen. Elizabeth, no matter what happens, stay close to me and keep moving toward the car. Can you do that? Yes. Good, because in about 30 seconds, this quiet suburban neighborhood is going to turn into a war zone. Through the windows, Maria could see shadows moving between houses. The attackers were closing in, confident that they had trapped their targets in an indefensible position. They were about to learn otherwise. Thunderbolt. Execute. The night exploded into chaos. Sergeant Martinez and his team opened fire from concealed positions, catching the attackers in a crossfire that turned their coordinated assault into a desperate fight for survival. Flashbang grenades detonated in sequence, disorienting the hostiles and providing cover for Maria's next move. She opened the front door and stepped onto the porch with Dr. Chen behind her. "This way," she said calmly, as if they were taking the casual evening stroll instead of walking through a battlefield. The rental car was parked 30 feet away. Between them and the vehicle, 2 attackers were trying to recover from the flashbang effects. Maria's rifle spoke twice, precisely, and both threats were eliminated. "Move," she told Dr. Chen. They reached the car as automatic weapons fire erupted from multiple directions. Maria pushed Dr. Chen into the passenger seat, then dove behind the wheel as bullets shattered the rear window. The engine started on the first try. Maria had insisted on a vehicle she'd personally inspected and prepared. As they pulled away from the curb, her earpiece crackled with status reports. "Reaper Falcon. 4 hostiles down, 2 retreating. The neighborhood is secure. Roger, Falcon. Any casualties on our side?" "Negative. Clean sweep." Maria smiled grimly as she drove through the suburban streets. "Elizabeth, you can breathe now." Dr. Chen was gripping the door handle so tightly her knuckles were white. "Are they all dead?" "Not all of them. We took one alive for questioning. What happens now?" "Now we disappear until my team can extract information from our prisoner. I have a place in mind somewhere they'll never think to look." 20 minutes later, Maria pulled into the parking lot of a 24-hour laundromat in a rundown section of D.C., the kind of place where people minded their own business and asked no questions. Dr. Chen looked around nervously. "This is where we're hiding? This is where we're hiding in plain sight." Maria led her through the back entrance to a small apartment above the laundromat. "Welcome to my real safe house." The apartment was spartanly furnished but comfortable, a place Maria had maintained under a false identity for emergencies. Exactly like this one. Dr. Chen looked around at the basic furniture, the small kitchen, the single bedroom. "You've been planning this for a long time, haven't you?" "Elizabeth, I've been planning for every contingency since the day I took this assignment." Maria activated several electronic devices that would sweep for surveillance and create a secure communications environment. "The people trying to kill you aren't just criminals. They're part of a network that reaches into government, military, and corporate circles. How deep does it go?" "That's what we're going to find out." Maria's secure phone buzzed with an incoming message. She read it, and her expression grew grim. "What is it?" "My team just finished questioning the prisoner we captured. Elizabeth, the conspiracy is worse than we thought." Dr. Chen sat down heavily on the couch. "How much worse?" "The people who hired those mercenaries aren't just selling your research to foreign governments. They're planning to use it to compromise every classified communication system the U.S. military uses. When they're finished, they'll be able to intercept and decode everything: troop movements, operational plans, intelligence reports. That would be ... catastrophic. It would essentially blind our military and intelligence services." Maria sat down across from her. "Elizabeth, your quantum encryption research isn't just valuable. It's the key to national defense in the digital age. Then we have to stop them. We will. But first, I need you to help me understand something. The research data you hid in your apartment, how complete is it? It's the final working algorithm. With that data, someone could build a quantum encryption system that would be unbreakable by current technology." Maria nodded. "And in the wrong hands, it could also be used to break existing encryption systems. Theoretically, yes. But Maria, there's something else you need to know." "What?" Dr. Chen looked directly at her for the first time since they'd met. "I didn't just hide the research data in my apartment. I also hid evidence that I've been gathering for months. What kind of evidence? Financial records, communication logs, meeting schedules. I suspected someone in the department was stealing my work, so I started keeping track of everything. Everyone who had access to my research, everyone who asked questions about my progress, everyone who showed unusual interest in the project. Maria felt a surge of admiration for the scientist. Elizabeth, you've been conducting your own investigation. I'm not military or FBI, but I'm not stupid. When classified research starts showing up in foreign publications, you notice. Dr. Chen managed a weak smile. I learned from watching you, actually. You taught me that invisible people see everything. What did you discover? The conspiracy involves at least 12 people in various government agencies and defense contractors. But Maria, there's something else. Something that's going to change everything. Tell me. Dr. Chen pulled a small encrypted drive from her backpack. The leader of the conspiracy isn't who you think it is. Maria took the drive, feeling its weight like a loaded weapon. 3 years of undercover work, and she was about to learn that. Everything she thought she knew was wrong. Who is it, Elizabeth? Someone who's been watching you for 3 years. Someone who knew your real identity from the beginning. Maria's blood ran cold. That's impossible. My cover was perfect. Your cover was perfect. But your mission was compromised from day one. Dr. Chen looked at her with a mixture of fear and admiration. Maria, you weren't sent to Blackwater to investigate corporate espionage. You were sent there to be eliminated. The room fell silent, except for the distant sound of washing machines running in the laundromat below. Maria stared at the encrypted drive, understanding finally dawning. She hadn't been hunting the conspiracy. The conspiracy had been hunting her. Maria stared at the encrypted drive in her hands, her mind racing through 3 years of memories, looking for signs she should have seen. Dr. Chen watched her with sympathy, understanding the impact of what she'd just revealed. How long have you known? Maria asked quietly. I started suspecting about 6 months ago. Someone with high-level access was feeding information to the people stealing my research. But the information was too detailed, too specific. It wasn't just about my work, it was about you. Maria stood up and walked to the window, automatically scanning the street below for threats. Her training told her to trust no one but her. Instinct said Dr. Chen was telling the truth. Show me what you found. Dr. Chen inserted the encrypted drive into Maria's laptop. Files began appearing on the screen: financial records, communication logs, surveillance reports. But it was the personnel file that made Maria's blood run cold. Her own file, complete with her real military record, psychological evaluations, and details about her assignment at Blackwater that should have been classified at the highest levels. Someone with access to your military records was selling information about you to foreign intelligence services. Dr. Chen explained. They knew you were coming to Blackwater before you even arrived. But if they knew who I was, why didn't they just eliminate me immediately? Because they needed you to establish your cover first. Think about it, Maria. If a special operations soldier disappears before completing an undercover assignment, that raises questions. But if she disappears after 3 years of being just a janitor, who investigates? Maria scrolled through the files, recognizing names, dates, and operational details that painted a picture of betrayal at the highest levels. But one name made her stop cold. General Robert Morrison, her commanding officer, the man who had given her the assignment. The man she'd trusted with her life. No, she whispered, not him. Dr. Chen moved to stand beside her. I'm sorry, Maria, but look at the communication logs. General Morrison has been feeding information to the conspiracy from the beginning. Maria's hands shook as she opened communication files. Message after message, detailing her activities, her progress, her weaknesses. All sent from General Morrison's secure military account to encrypted addresses that led back to foreign intelligence services. He set me up, she said, her voice barely audible. He sent me into this assignment knowing I would be killed. Not killed immediately. Used first, then eliminated when you'd served your purpose. Maria closed the laptop and sat down heavily. 3 years of her life. 3 years of believing she was serving her country, and all of it had been a lie. She was nothing more than a pawn in someone else's game. Her secure phone buzzed. General Morrison's contact information appeared on the screen. "Don't answer it," Dr. Chen warned. "I have to. If I don't, he'll know we've discovered the truth." Maria answered the call. "General Morrison, sir." "Colonel Santos, I've been briefing the Pentagon on your progress. Outstanding work identifying the conspiracy at Blackwater." Maria forced her voice to remain steady and professional. "Thank you. Sir, the investigation is ongoing." "About that, Maria, I need you to bring Dr. Chen to a secure facility for extended debriefing. There are questions about her research that require classified discussion." "What facility, sir?" "I'm sending you coordinates now." "How soon can you be there?" Maria looked at Dr. Chen, who was shaking her head frantically. The coordinates would lead to a trap, a place where both of them would disappear permanently. "Sir, Dr. Chen is still recovering from the attack. Could we postpone it until tomorrow?" "Negative, Colonel. This is a matter of national security. I need both of you at the facility within 2 hours." "Understood, sir. We'll be there." Maria hung up the phone and immediately began packing their equipment. "You're not actually going there, are you?" Dr. Chen asked. "No, but we need General Morrison." "To think we are." Maria activated her communications gear and sent a message to Sergeant Martinez. "Falcon, this is Reaper. Emergency protocols. The mission is compromised at the highest level." The response came back immediately. "Roger, Reaper. Orders? Go dark. Trust no one above the level of field operatives. I'm sending you a file that explains everything." Maria uploaded Dr. Chen's evidence to a secure server that only her team could access. If something happened to her and Dr. Chen, the truth would still survive. "Elizabeth, I need to ask you something, and your life depends on giving me an honest answer." "What? Is there anyone at all who you absolutely trust? Someone who could help us expose this conspiracy?" Dr. Chen thought for a moment. "My sister. She's a journalist for the Washington Post. She's been investigating corruption in defense contracting for years. Can you contact her securely?" "Yes, we have a private communication system we set up after she started receiving threats about her reporting." "Do it. Send her everything, the research data, the evidence about the conspiracy, my real identity. Everything. If we don't survive the next few hours, she needs to be able to tell the world what really happened." While Dr. Chen made contact with her sister, Maria prepared for what might be her final mission. She checked her weapons, reviewed the tactical situation, and made peace with the possibility that she might not survive the night. But there was one more thing she had to do. She activated a secure communication channel and sent a message to every member of her old team, every contact she trusted in the special operations community, everyone who had served with her and knew what she was capable of. The message was simple. The system is compromised. The janitor was never just a janitor. Trust no one above field level. Evidence package attached. If you don't hear from me in 24 hours, assume I'm dead and act accordingly." Dr. Chen finished her communication with her sister. "It's done. She has everything." "Good. Now we're going to do something that General Morrison won't expect." "What's that?" Maria smiled, and for the first time since learning about the betrayal, it was the smile of someone who had finally seen the complete battlefield. "We're going to that facility he wants us to visit. But we're not going to be victims." "What do you mean?" "Elizabeth, for 3 years I've been underestimated, dismissed, and betrayed. But there's one thing General Morrison and his conspirators forgot about me." "What's that?" I didn't earn the call sign Reaper by running away from fights. Maria stood up and checked her weapons one final time. They want Maria Santos, the invisible janitor who knows too much? Fine, but they're going to get Lieutenant Colonel Santos, and she's coming to collect a debt. Dr. Chen stared at her with a mixture of fear and admiration. Maria, this is suicide. Maybe, but Elizabeth, sometimes the only way to win is to make. Your enemies think they've already won. Maria looked out the window at the pre-dawn darkness. In a few hours, the sun would rise on either her vindication or her death. Either way, the world was about to learn what happened when you underestimated the woman who cleaned your floors and listened to your secrets. The Reaper was going home. The secure facility turned out to be an abandoned warehouse in an industrial section of Maryland, exactly the kind of place where people disappeared without a trace. Maria parked the rental car a quarter-mile away and approached on foot, using night vision equipment to scan the area. 12 hostiles minimum, she reported through her earpiece to Sergeant Martinez. Perimeter guards, sniper positions, and what looks like a command post in the main building. Reaper, this is Falcon. We're in position. Say the word and we light them up. Negative, Falcon. I need to get inside first. I need evidence of General Morrison's involvement that will hold up in court. Roger. Standing by. Maria looked back at the secondary position where Dr. Chen waited with FBI agent Davis and 2 other agents who had been cleared by Maria's team. The scientist was safe for now, but Maria knew that safety would only last as long as she could expose the conspiracy. She activated her tactical gear and began moving toward the warehouse. For 3 years, she had moved through Blackwater Defense Technologies like a ghost, invisible and ignored. Tonight, she would use those same skills to infiltrate a facility designed to be her tomb. The perimeter guards were professionals, but they were watching for an approach by vehicle or a frontal assault. They weren't expecting someone who could move like smoke between their positions. Maria bypassed 2 guard posts and disabled a 3rd guard with a sleeper hold that left him unconscious but alive. The warehouse had multiple entrances, but Maria chose the least obvious one, a service door used for maintenance access. Her lock-picking skills, honed by 3 years of accessing restricted areas at Blackwater, made quick work of the electronic lock. Inside, the warehouse had been converted into a temporary command center. Banks of communication equipment, surveillance, monitors, and tactical planning boards filled the main floor. Maria counted at least 20 personnel, including several she recognized from her time in the military. And there, standing at the center of it all, was General Robert Morrison. Maria activated a small recording device and moved closer, staying in the shadows cast by the equipment racks. Expected her here an hour ago, Morrison was saying to a man in an expensive suit. Santos is many things, but she's not usually late. Perhaps she suspects something, Suit replied in an accent that sounded Eastern European. Impossible. I've been managing her for 3 years. She trusts me completely. And Dr. Chen will be eliminated along with Santos. Their deaths will be attributed to the same foreign agents who killed Morrison and Webb. Very convenient. Maria smiled grimly. General Morrison was about to provide all the evidence she needed to destroy him. The research data, the suit continued, already secured. From Dr. Chen's apartment, our people found the drives exactly where she said they would be. Excellent. With the quantum encryption algorithms, our clients will be able to compromise American military communications within 6 months. Maria's finger moved to her weapon's trigger. She could end this right now. One shot would eliminate General Morrison and throw the entire conspiracy into chaos. But she needed more than just his death. She needed the complete network exposed. General, one of the technicians called out. We have movement on the perimeter sensors. Morrison moved to a bank of monitors showing the warehouse exterior. Where? Southeast approach. Looks like a single vehicle. Maria's earpiece crackled quietly. "Reaper, this is Falcon. We have FBI vehicles approaching your position. Looks like." Agent Davis called for backup. Maria cursed silently. She'd told Davis to wait for her signal, but apparently he'd decided to take initiative. The approaching vehicles would spook Morrison's people and potentially start a firefight. That would destroy the evidence she needed. "Falcon, how long until the FBI arrives at the perimeter?" 3 minutes, maybe less. Not enough time to gather the evidence and get out safely. Maria made a tactical decision that would have horrified her instructors at Fort Bragg. She walked out of the shadows and into the middle of the command center. "Good evening, General Morrison," she said calmly. "Sorry I'm late." The reaction was immediate and exactly what she'd expected. Weapons appeared from multiple directions, all pointed at her. But Maria kept walking, her hands visible but near her own weapons. "Colonel Santos," Morrison said, his voice carefully controlled. "Where is Dr. Chen?" "Safe, which is more than I can say for you. I beg your pardon?" Maria looked around the command center, taking in the faces of people she'd served with, trusted, believed in. "Did you really think I wouldn't figure it out, General? 3 years is a long time to maintain a lie." Morrison's expression didn't change, but the man in the expensive suit stepped forward. "General, who is this woman?" "Someone who's outlived her usefulness," Morrison replied. "Gentlemen, eliminate her." "I wouldn't," Maria said conversationally. "Not until you hear what I have to say." "You're hardly in a position to make demands, Colonel." Maria smiled. "General, do you remember what you told me when you gave me the call sign Reaper?" Morrison's face went pale. "Santos, you said I earned it because I always completed my missions, no matter what the cost." Maria's voice carried clearly through. "The warehouse. Well, General, I'm about to complete this one." She pressed a button on the device in her pocket. "What did you just do?" Morrison demanded. "I just transmitted every conversation in this warehouse for the past hour to FBI headquarters, the Pentagon, the CIA, and the Washington Post." Maria's smile widened. "Including your confession about selling classified research to foreign agents." The warehouse erupted into chaos. Orders were shouted, weapons were raised, and Maria dove behind a bank of equipment as gunfire erupted around her. But the damage was already done. Her earpiece crackled with Sergeant Martinez's voice. "Reaper, FBI is at the perimeter." "Whatever you did there, it worked. They're broadcasting surrender demands." Maria keyed her transmitter. "Falcon, tell the FBI they have multiple hostiles inside, including General Robert Morrison. Consider all personnel inside to be hostile until proven otherwise." "Roger, Reaper." "What's your status?" "Still breathing, still fighting, still completing the mission." Maria returned fire as Morrison's people tried to reach her position. But she wasn't trying to win a firefight. She was buying time for the FBI to surround the building and for her transmitted evidence to reach the people who could act on it. "Santos," Morrison shouted over the gunfire. "This doesn't have to end badly for you." "You're right, General," Maria called back. "It doesn't have to end badly for me." She moved to a new position, using cover techniques learned in a dozen different conflicts. "But it's definitely going to end badly for you." The sound of helicopters filled the air outside, followed by amplified voices demanding surrender. Through the warehouse windows, Maria could see FBI tactical teams taking positions. It was over. General Morrison and his co-conspirators were trapped in a building, surrounded by federal agents, with evidence of their treason already in the hands of law enforcement. The conspiracy that had betrayed Maria's trust and threatened national security was about to come crashing down. But Maria wasn't finished yet. She had one more score to settle. The siege lasted 47 minutes. When the FBI tactical teams finally breached the warehouse, they found most of Morrison's co-conspirators either surrendering or trying to destroy evidence. But General Morrison himself was nowhere to be found. Maria knew where he'd gone. Well, the chaos of the siege unfolded. She'd slipped out through the same maintenance entrance she'd used to enter. Her night vision equipment showed her Morrison's escape route, a service tunnel that led to a storm drain system extending under the industrial complex. She followed. The tunnels were dark, damp, and filled with the echoes of running water. Maria moved carefully, her weapon ready, following the sound of footsteps ahead of her. Morrison was making no effort to conceal his movement. He was running in panic, not executing a tactical withdrawal. The tunnel opened into a larger drainage chamber, where several pipes converged. Morrison was there, trying to make his way toward what looked like another exit. He turned when he heard her approach, his service pistol already in his hand. "Colonel Santos," he said, breathing heavily. "I should have known you'd follow me. You shouldn't have betrayed me, General." They faced each other across the concrete chamber, weapons drawn. 3 years of lies and deception finally brought into the open. "You don't understand the bigger picture," Morrison said. "The military-industrial complex is changing. The old loyalties, the old ways of doing things, they're obsolete. I was positioning us for the future by selling classified research to foreign governments, by ensuring American interests were protected in a multipolar world. Do you think the Chinese or Russians would hesitate to use that research against us? At least this way, we maintain some control." Maria kept her weapon. Trained on him, but she didn't fire. "Not yet." "General, do you remember the oath we took when we became officers?" "Santos, do you remember it?" Morrison's face twisted with anger. "Don't lecture me about oaths, Colonel. I've served my country for 30 years. And for at least 3 of those years you've been betraying it." Maria stepped closer. "You sent me on an assignment you knew would get me killed. You compromised my mission from day one. You violated every principle we swore to uphold. I did what was necessary. You did what was profitable." Morrison raised his weapon, but Maria was already moving. 3 years of suppressed combat reflexes exploded into action. Her shot took Morrison in the shoulder, spinning him around and sending his pistol clattering across the concrete. He fell hard, clutching his wounded shoulder. Maria approached him carefully, keeping her weapon trained on him. "This is for every soldier who trusts you," she said quietly. "For every mission you compromised, every life you put at risk for money." Morrison looked up at her with hatred and fear. "You think killing me will change anything? The network is bigger than you know. They'll find you, Santos. They'll hunt you down." "Maybe," Maria agreed. "But they'll have to do it without you." She zip-tied his hands behind his back, then activated her communications gear. "FBI command, this is Colonel Santos. I have General Morrison in custody. Requesting immediate medical and transport to these coordinates." The response came immediately. "Colonel Santos, this is Agent Mitchell. Are you injured?" "Negative. Morrison has a shoulder wound but will survive. I need him alive for questioning." "Roger. Transport en route." "Colonel, I have to ask, are there any other military personnel involved in this conspiracy?" Maria looked down at Morrison, who was glaring at her with undisguised hatred. "I'll have a complete list for you within the hour," she said. 20 minutes later, FBI medical personnel were treating Morrison's wound, while federal agents read him his rights. Maria watched from a distance, feeling the weight of 3 years. Finally lifting from her shoulders, Dr. Chen appeared beside her, escorted by Agent Davis. "Is it over?" the scientist asked. "The immediate threat is over," Maria replied. "But there will be trials, investigations, congressional hearings. This conspiracy reached into multiple agencies and departments. What happened to my research? That's not my decision to make. But Elizabeth, I think your work is too important to suppress. Quantum encryption technology could protect American communications for decades." Dr. Chen nodded. "Maria, I have to ask what happens to you now." Maria looked around at the organized chaos of the FBI operation. Agents were cataloging evidence, interviewing suspects, and beginning the long process of unraveling a conspiracy that had threatened national security. "I honestly don't know," she said. 3 years ago, I was Lieutenant Colonel Maria Santos, Special Operations. For the past 3 years, I've been Maria the Janitor. Now I'm not sure who I am. You're the woman who saved my life and exposed a conspiracy that could have compromised our national defense, Dr. Chen said firmly. "You're a hero," Maria smiled. "I'm a soldier who did her job. That's all I ever wanted to be." Agent Mitchell approached them. "Colonel Santos, I need to debrief you on everything that happened tonight. But before we begin, I have a message from the Secretary of Defense." "What message?" "He wants to know if you're interested in heading up a new task force focused on internal security threats. Apparently, your unique skill set, the ability to operate undetected in sensitive environments, has impressed some very important people." Maria considered the offer. Another undercover assignment, more years of pretending to be someone she wasn't, more time spent invisible and underestimated. But she also thought about Derek Morrison, Dr. Webb, and General Morrison, people who had betrayed their oaths and endangered their country for personal gain. She thought about all the other conspiracies that might be operating in the shadows, all the other threats that needed to be identified and eliminated. "Agent Mitchell, tell the Secretary I'll consider his offer, but I have conditions." "Name them." "I choose my own team. I have complete operational autonomy. And I want a guarantee that if I uncover corruption at any level, no matter how high, it will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. I'll relay your conditions." As the FBI vehicles pulled away with their prisoners, Maria stood in the pre-dawn darkness and watched the sunrise beginning to paint the eastern sky. For 3 years, she had been invisible, dismissed, underestimated, but she had also been watching, learning, and preparing. And now the world knew that the woman who cleaned the floors and emptied the trash cans had been one of the most dangerous people in the building all along. 3 months later, Maria sat in a coffee shop in downtown Washington, D.C., reading the morning edition of the Washington Post. The front page headline read, "Defense Conspiracy Trials Begin. Former General Faces Treason Charges." The article, written by Dr. Chen's sister Sarah, detailed the extensive corruption network that had been exposed through Maria's investigation. 12 government officials, including General Morrison, were facing federal charges. The quantum encryption research had been secured and was now being developed under enhanced security protocols. Maria's phone buzzed with a text message from Dr. Chen. "Coffee later? I have news about the new position." She smiled and replied, "Absolutely, same place as usual." Over the past 3 months, Maria and Elizabeth had become genuine friends, not the performer and audience they'd been during the undercover years, but two women who had survived a life-threatening experience together. Elizabeth had been offered a position heading up the Pentagon's new Quantum Security Division, with a mandate to develop unbreakable communication systems for military use. She'd accepted, but only after receiving assurances that her work would be protected by security measures designed by Maria herself. Maria had also made her decision about the Secretary of Defense's offer. She'd accepted. The new internal security task force was small, elite, and operated with unprecedented autonomy. Maria chose her team carefully, Sergeant Martinez as her second-in-command, Agent Mitchell as FBI liaison, and 6 other specialists who had proven their loyalty and competence in previous operations. Their mandate was simple: identify and eliminate internal security threats at any level of government or military hierarchy. Their methods were Maria's choice. As she finished reading the newspaper article, Maria reflected on the changes in her life. She was no longer invisible. Her role in exposing the conspiracy had made her something of a legend in military and intelligence circles. But she'd learned to use visibility as effectively as she'd once used invisibility, sometimes the best way. To hide was in plain sight. Her phone rang. The caller ID showed a number. She recognized her new commanding officer. Colonel Santos speaking. "Maria, this is General Patricia Hayes. We have a situation that requires your attention." General Hayes was the Pentagon official who had replaced General Morrison as head of special operations. She was also one of the few people who had supported Maria's investigation from the beginning, providing resources and political cover when the conspiracy tried to discredit her findings. "What kind of situation, General? Have you been following the news about defense contractor irregularities in the Pacific Command region?" Maria had indeed been following those stories. Several major military contracts had been awarded under suspicious circumstances, and there were rumors of classified technology being transferred to unauthorized recipients. "Yes, ma'am. It has all the hallmarks of another organized conspiracy. That's our assessment as well." "Maria, how would you feel about taking a vacation in Hawaii?" Maria smiled. "General, are you suggesting I might want to find employment in the hospitality industry?" "I'm suggesting that a certain luxury resort in Honolulu is looking for experienced housekeeping staff. The pay is modest, but the learning opportunities could be substantial." "I see. And would this position require long-term commitment?" "Oh, I'd say at least 6 months. Maybe longer, depending on how much cleaning needs to be done." Maria looked around the coffee shop at the ordinary people going about their ordinary lives, completely unaware that their security depended on people willing to become extraordinary when circumstances demanded it. "Generally, I accept the position. When do I start?" 2 weeks. Your cover identity is already being prepared." "Maria?" "Yes, ma'am. Be careful out there. These people have already proven they're willing to kill to protect their interests. Don't worry, General. They'll never see me coming." Maria hung up the phone and finished her coffee. In 2 weeks, she would once again become invisible, a hotel housekeeper who cleaned rooms, changed towels, and listened to conversations that guests thought were private. But this time, she wouldn't be alone. Her team would be deployed throughout the hospitality and service industries in Hawaii, creating a network of invisible watchers who could access every level of the conspiracy. As she left the coffee shop, Maria caught her reflection in the window. She looked like any other professional woman, well-dressed, confident, unremarkable. But she carried herself with the posture of someone who had learned that being underestimated was the most powerful weapon of all. Her phone buzzed with another message, this time from Sergeant Martinez. "Boss, got the Hawaii assignments. Hotel staff, maintenance crew, tour guides, and one very convincing surfer dude. We're going to have this wrapped up in 3 months." Maria smiled as she walked toward her meeting with Dr. Chen. Martinez was probably right. 3 months would be enough to identify and neutralize whatever conspiracy was operating in the Pacific Command. But even if it took longer, Maria was patient. She'd learned patience during 3 years of emptying trash cans and mopping floors, while surrounded by people who thought she was beneath their notice. She'd learned that invisible people really did see everything, and she'd learned that sometimes the most dangerous person in the room was the one everyone ignored. The woman who had once been dismissed as just the janitor was now one of the most effective counterintelligence operators in the U.S. military. But more importantly, she was finally comfortable with who she was. Not Maria, the invisible janitor. Not Lieutenant Colonel Santos, the decorated soldier. But someone who could be both when the mission required it. As she walked through the streets of Washington, D.C., Maria thought about all the people who had underestimated her over the years. Derek Morrison, who had fired her for being useless. General Morrison, who had thought he could manipulate and eliminate her. The mercenaries who had expected a helpless civilian instead of a trained operative. They had all learned the same lesson: never underestimate the woman who cleans your floors and listens to your secrets, because she might just be the most dangerous. person you've ever met. What did you think of this thrilling journey? Share your favorite moment in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss our latest tailies. What kind of story would you like to hear next? Perhaps another tale of hidden heroes, or maybe something completely different. Your suggestions help shape our future stories.